I can't hear you. Uh-uh.
I was muted.
It's like, bro, what is going on?
Let's restart again. Hello and welcome to the Do Not Disturb Football Podcast. It is just me and Darian tonight. I started the show muted. I was explaining that Nimmer's not here and the graphics are not going to be as good as they should be because Nimmer runs the graphics. And when I'm running the graphics, as you can see, my mind kind of goes a whole bunch of different ways, and sometimes I leave myself muted on the mic. So that's how we started the show. But we should be back with sound now. Darian, how was your day today, and how are you doing overall?
Yeah, today was a good day. Just spent, just working, hitting the phones pretty hard, trying to find some doctors for a couple of jobs in Michigan that we're sourcing. Got one of my doctors that's been working a government job, trying to overlap her with a potential Michigan job where she's hailing from, so it'll be closer to home as opposed to North Dakota where she's been going to work. But it was really good to chat with her, especially after her first couple of weeks on the job over in North Dakota. But how was your day?
It was good. Not a ton went on. Love is Blind has started,
Oh
so
yeah,
we've been watching that. Have you been watching that?
yeah. It's been pretty good. Uh, I forget what his name is. I think it's Leo, the art dealer.
Yeah.
He's a scummy. He's a narcissist for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I love watching these shows with Sammy just because I talk crap about everybody the entire time.
Same here, bro. I was like, Sam should just like have a hidden camera just for like the live reactions that I have. It would be such a fucking hit. I call out everybody. The smallest of things I laugh at. It's hysterical.
It's hilarious. But yeah, that art dealer guy, he's so funny because he's like I don't want to talk about how much money I make, but it's really a part of who I am, and I've inherited an art shop, and I don't want people to take my money. Did I mention that I'm rich? And he just like he's the worst. He's the worst. Apparently, Washington D.C. I didn't know this, but that's like one of the worst scenes for dating.
Yeah, it's shit show. Horrible. Everyone's pretentious as hell, and they all just flex their money some way somehow. It's so funny. Like when I was out there, even just being a bouncer at a couple of bars, I was like, dude, these people suck. Like they're all up their own asses. They don't care what people like say or think. Like they don't even care what they say. But man, it's wild. Yeah, DC is not for the faint of heart.
Well, let's move on to football. I'm excited for some of these matchups coming up. Thursday night, you have Niners at Seattle. I think that's going to be a fun game to watch. You have the Washington playing the Ravens. I'm really excited for that game. There's also Dallas versus Detroit, which will be really fun. So there's going to be a lot of good matchups this weekend. Let's get into the injury report. Man, it's just as long as it was yesterday, which is insane to me. But let's start in Atlanta. Falcons wide receiver Darnell Mooney is questionable with a knee injury. That hurts me. Ravens wide receiver Rashad Bateman is questionable with a groin injury. Bills wide receiver Curtis Samuel and James Cook, the running back, are questionable with a foot injury. That also hurts me. Uh, Panthers wide receiver Deontay Johnson is questionable with a ankle injury. Bengals tight end Mike Gesicki is questionable with a hamstring injury. I wonder if he did that on that play that he chased down Hamilton.
Hmm.
That didn't even count. Um, the running back for the Bengals, Zach Moss, is questionable with a foot injury. Cowboys wide receiver Brandon Cooks has now been placed on IR. Texans wide receiver Nico Collins has also been placed on IR, so both of those guys will miss the next 4 weeks at least. Running back Joe Mixon for the Texans, he's questionable still with that ankle injury. And then I just saw right before we got on that the Colts wide receiver Michael Pittman has been reported to miss a couple weeks coming up with a back injury. So that guy didn't trade for him.
Yeah, same here. Jeez.
But Jonathan Taylor and Trey Sermon are actually both questionable too. So it could just be Goodson, that running back that really hasn't shown a lot of promise this year, but maybe he'll get his chance this week unless Jonathan Taylor comes back. I'm not really expecting him to be back, to be honest. Jaguars wide receiver Gabe Davis is questionable with a knee injury. It has been reported that Rashee Rice is likely to miss the rest of the season with the knee injury that he suffered. Raiders wide receiver Jacoby Myers is questionable with a knee injury. Patriots running back Ramondre Stevenson is questionable with a calf injury. Saints wide receiver Rashid Shaheed is questionable with a hip injury. Also, Alvin Kamara, he's also questionable with a hip injury. Buccaneers running back Rachaad White is questionable with a foot injury. And then Commanders running back Brian Robinson is questionable with a knee injury. So a lot of injuries still happening in the NFL. It seems like, I don't know what it is, like the first couple of days of the week pass and then someone else is on the injury report from the team, which is just crazy to me. But let's get into our first story. So there are going to be 2 new quarterbacks making their starts this weekend. One, Drake May for New England going up against Houston, and the other, Spencer Rattler, playing for the Saints. They're going to be playing Tampa Bay. Derek Carr went down with an oblique injury. He's listed as doubtful right now, but I did just read a story saying that they're turning to Spencer Rattler to start this weekend. So the question is to you, Darian, who do you think has the best debut out of those 2 quarterbacks?
Yeah, I think I got to give this to Spencer Rattler here. That might be the controversial take, but I think just with the matchup alone, we saw last week that Tampa Bay's pass defense is pretty porous. I mean, Mooney popped off for 33 points. I'm trying to think. Drake London also had 30 points. So the Tampa Bay pass defense is pretty susceptible to big plays, and so that means Olave should be getting open. And then, I mean, granted, with the injuries of Kamara and even Rashid Shaheed, it's kind of like the balancing act. But I do expect Kamara to be out there, and I would assume Rashid Shaheed's going to be a game time decision going into it. So Spencer Rattler is going to have all the tangibles there for him. I think it's going to be a better debut than that of Drake May against the Texans. Texans defense is pretty good. They give up some big plays to top talent teams. You saw that against the Bills. I think it's going to be a harder matchup for Drake May, especially in this debut coming in week 6. So I definitely think I like Rattler in this one going forward. What about you?
Yeah, I think I'm going Rattler too. I'm a little worried for Drake May. I'm not going to lie. I think about that first preseason game that he had, and I can't get that out of my head. Maybe it's different. Maybe it'll look different this time around, but I just think Drake May he's just one of those guys that, to me, if something goes wrong, it's going to really hurt his confidence. Where Spencer Rattler is on the other end of that. I think he's a very confident player, and I think the Saints are feeling pretty good starting him and actually getting to see what he can do. I like the pieces around Rattler more. That's another reason why I'm going with Rattler. But to me, this is just a bad matchup for the Patriots. Putting a rookie quarterback out against a team that's 4-1 right now. It's not like the Texans' defense has been stellar, but I think they're still one of the better defenses that
Mhm.
Drake May is probably going to go up against. So that's going to be a tough matchup for him. I am excited to see how Rattler um, operates in this system, whether it's going to be a lot of screen passes to Kamara or deep shots to some of the receivers they have, Olave and Rashid Shaheed if he's out there. So I'm really interested to see how that goes. I definitely want to tune into that game.
100%. Yeah. I've been pretty high on Rattler since he was in high school. I think we were at GCU when he was down at, I think it was Pinnacle or whatever the school is called. And like he was the talk of the state, or especially talk about like Scottsdale. So you knew about him early on. You keep track of him during his college career. And like it's always been the issue, his character. But like you said, it's that confidence. He knows what he can do. He's got swagger to him. I think he's going to take that into this first debut. And with a good matchup against Tampa Bay, he's got the tangibles. He's going to definitely have the better game than Drake May.
A lot of people said that he was like the biggest steal in the draft because he went. I don't even remember what round it was. Maybe like 7.
It was like sixth round or something
It was
super
really,
late like that.
really late in the draft. So a lot of people were saying that was the steal of the draft. He had a nice college career. Had definitely had some moments where he struggled, but
Mhm.
he showed some flashes. He could be a fun quarterback to watch this weekend. He can move a little bit, throws on the run well, so it'll be interesting to see. It's a much different look than Derek Carr for sure.
100%.
And the next topic, the Washington Commanders. They are ranked number 5 in Pro Football Talks power rankings. This is such a shift. How times have changed for this Washington Commanders team. I'm glad I get to talk to a Commanders fan about it. What is your reaction to this, and how are you feeling about this ranking?
Dude, I honestly don't think I've ever seen that high of a ranking in my entire time being a part of the fandom. Um, I mean, it's eye opening. I mean, I saw a stat that this is the first time since 2008 that we've gone 4-1 to start a season. Huge. Um, I mean, to be ranked fifth, I know we came into the season, people were ranking us like 31st, 30th, maybe. To make that big of a jump, 25 spots, absolutely nuts. I'm excited. We talked about it yesterday, even over the weekend, watching them play against the Browns. I was just so excited to watch Jaden Daniels, Terry McLaurin look great. I mean, they're bringing De'Ami Brown out of nowhere. I mean, he's been kind of riding the bench for the past 2 years, and he's showing out. He's making big plays down the field, being that deep threat that we drafted him to be a couple years ago. So they have all the pieces, and with Cliff, like being a part of it all and like creating that offense for Jaden Daniels, it's huge. I love it. I'm excited. I think the sky's the limit. This is just the beginning. I think there's still a long road ahead until we're like true Super Bowl contenders, especially that defensive piece. But to be ranked 5 right now is huge. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm excited too. Just to give everybody some context, the ranking goes Chiefs, Lions, Vikings, Texans, and then Commanders. And the team right behind them is the Ravens.
Mm.
So that's a very interesting that is the matchup that's going to happen this weekend. I'm excited to watch that game versus the Ravens. This is going to be a really big test, I think, for the Commanders. I think what's probably not being talked about enough is how poor the Ravens defense is playing. I think this game could be. I'm not going to say an exact replica, but I think very similar to the last week's matchup with the Bengals and the Ravens. And the Ravens nearly lost that game, kind of got really lucky to win the game, but put up 41 points and won by a field goal to win the game. So I kind of think that's going to be a reoccurring thing for the Ravens this year. That defense has lost a lot of people, not only the coaching, but some of the players, and it's definitely been showing. So I'm really excited for this Commanders team. I hope they pull it out this weekend and they're 5-1. That would be really cool to see.
Yeah.
That offense looks unstoppable right now, and I guess that's all due to Jaden Daniels and Cliff Kingsbury.
It's huge. I mean, if they beat the Ravens, like I was texting my aunt, I was like, literally, like next week, if they beat the Ravens, I'm buying a jersey. I'm buying a Jaden Daniels jersey. It
Oh
doesn't
yeah.
matter. Like, I've been stuck with the old jerseys of Taylor, the old custom one I have, but it's time for shedding that skin and getting into the new regime that we have. So I'm behind it. It took a lot to encourage me to get back into this fandom because it's been hard. We've been a poverty franchise ever since Dan Schneider's been here or was there. Thank God he left, but
Hey,
man,
maybe that's all it took. You get him out of the building, and now you guys are winning again.
yeah, that's true. My aunt's a real estate agent too, and I guess Dan Schneider's old house is on the market for I think it was like $95 million.
Holy shoot!
Yeah,
Wow.
it's crazy as shit.
Which jersey are you gonna get? The white, red, or which one?
I hate the black jersey. I don't know what it is about it. I think it was a god awful choice, but I think I have to stick to the burgundy. I like the dark red.
Yeah, I think that's solid. That's gonna be a nice jersey. That Jaden Daniels is. He looks like such a good quarterback, and like doesn't seem to have any personality issues. He just seems like a guy that wants to compete, which is awesome. Awesome
Hmm.
for Washington for sure. The 49ers, they have struggled this season. They lost 2 weeks ago to the Rams, and they just lost to the Cardinals this past weekend. So now they're 2-3. I saw um, Bosa had a comment on it. He said like it's not really win now, but like we we feel like there's a lot of pressure to win now.
Hmm.
Coach Shanahan said they all feel like they're under a lot of pressure. What do you think they can do to ignite some winning football?
I mean, pressure makes diamonds. It's just how you rise to it. So I think with Kyle Shanahan, he's got a good recipe for his offense. I forget who the defensive coordinator is. I think that's kind of where they've been lacking as opposed to previous years where they've been a pretty stout defense all around. Um, I think just from watching some of the games, especially like the tail end of the Minnesota game, it just seemed that Bosa wasn't getting pressure. There hasn't been a ton of pressure overall. Maybe that's the issue. And then you're relying so much on your corners and your secondary to cover for extended period of time. So then there's those big gash plays that happen. I mean, with Justin Jefferson for what I think it was like a 95-yard TD.
Yeah.
Like there was no pressure on that play. Sam Darnold was just back there chilling and just bombed that jump. So I think when it comes down to it, I think the defense needs to step up in these like key crucial uh, games that they're ending up losing. I think that's really where it lies. The offense has showcased that they can make big plays. I mean, you had Ayuk, who wasn't doing jack shit for 4 weeks, come out and put up 147 yards, but then you watch Debo falter there, but also George Kittle being the red zone threat. Um, they have so many mouths to feed on the offense, but it's so much firepower that they're going to score points. It's just about the defense limiting how much they give up. So they get more pressure. They get into the face of the QBs they're playing against. I think it'll be better days for San Fran.
Do you think if things don't improve and they
Mhm.
finish this season maybe second or third in the division, do you think that puts Kyle Shanahan on the hot seat?
I don't think so. He's proven to get them to the Super Bowl, and you can't fire that unless he's got 2 3 year skid. You lose all the pieces that you put money into. I think their Super Bowl window is closing. I think it's probably within the next 2 years. If he doesn't win, he's out. But this season, if they have a bad year, I don't think it's any issue. He's going to come back, get some pieces in the off season, and he'll be fine.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. You think about the most important pieces on this team. I think one is Trent Williams, the left tackle. And I think two is Christian McCaffrey. And he's not been out there, and that is definitely making their offense a little more predictable.
Yep.
Purdy had a bad interception at the end of that game last week where his arm got hit, but to me, like, he should have just not thrown that ball. I kind of thought it was kind of crazy for him to throw the ball, and it just looked like a terrible interception. The ball went straight up in the air and right into an interception. So, yeah, I'm just interested to see what happens when Christian McCaffrey comes back, if he comes back at all.
Yeah.
But he seems to me like one of the most important parts on this team, and I guess without him, this Niners team is a lot less intimidating.
For sure. I mean, how old is he? He's what, 28, 29? He's our age?
I think so.
Yeah. I mean, typically, what is like the average age that a running back lasts in the league? It's like 26 for most.
The average is real low.
Yeah. I mean, the case in point with like Todd Gurley, he like left the league at like 25, 26, had like 5 good seasons. So he came in at 20 and then was just kind of a ghost and then left the league. So, I mean, CMC has gone above what typical running backs tenures last, but it's showing with his recent injuries, especially this one being tendonitis in both calves. So his days out, I'm not going to say his days are numbered, but he's got one of the most wicked training programs during the off season. His body's constantly in motion, so he has no time to truly heal. So I think if I'm San Fran, I'd say, hey, we're just going to scrap you for the season. We can win games. We have Jordan Mason, who's shown that he can produce. Get yourself healthy, see where we lie in the playoffs, maybe get you in right before then, and then you have a good ramp up period into the playoffs. But who knows? I definitely would kind of scrap him for a year, come back next year.
It's so interesting how it started because it just was reported as a calf injury,
Mm-hmm.
and then a couple weeks pass, and then we hear tendonitis, and then we hear tendonitis in both legs, and he's going off to Germany, and he's seeing all these doctors. It's just crazy, like what it snowballed into from a reporting standpoint. I'm sure the Niners had some knowledge of this, but it's crazy that it just turned from a calf injury and he's just questionable week one to he's missed the entire season so far, and there's a chance he might not come back.
Yeah, it's insane. It's kind of like Bijan last year when he was sick, and the Falcons didn't say anything, and they had that whole injury report issue. Like, definitely teams, they try to keep as much information, like cards close to the vest type of thing. But I think it's just like it's gotten really bad, especially with this situation, because like you mentioned, it's just little bread crumb that grows and grows and grows, and now we're like, this dude's probably never coming back.
Yeah,
So
and it's interesting thinking about the point that you brought up, the running backs in this league. You think about, like you said, Todd Gurley. He played really well for the Rams and then went to the Falcons one year, and that was kind of it.
mhm.
You've had other stories like Dalvin Cook. He's on the Cowboys right now, but he was one of the main guys just not very long ago, like 3 or 4 years ago, and now like he's struggling to get any playing time with Dallas, and like last year went was just not played at all really because they played Madison in front of him. It's just been really. Oh, he was with the. Where did he go last year?
He went to the Jets at one point
The Jets, yeah,
and asked for a trade.
and the Ravens.
Hmm.
It's been crazy. Le'Veon Bell, that's another guy that was really young and then just kind of fell off a cliff. It's really like very common. It seems like for the running backs, way more than any other position, which is scary for Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, that's why they don't want to pay him. Like you see, like it takes a lot. I mean, the Giants should have paid Saquon, and like that dude's a freak of nature, and he's showcasing when he gets the ball why he's worth the damn money. But I mean, it's even dudes like Jonathan Taylor. He's getting hurt. I don't even know how old he is, but
I think he's
he's
like
constantly getting hurt.
26.
Yeah, he's 26, constantly hurt past 2 seasons, one ankle injury. He's getting it's more susceptible. And then Mixon's kind of on the older side, but he's been a little bit of a consistent back. But now he's got this ankle injury. Let's say what happens to him after. So yeah, we got like running back graveyard coming here soon with some of these big name guys that we've seen for the past several years.
And that's why I think that's why you see the Chiefs run the offense they do. Like Pacheco was there for the past couple of years. He's hurt now, but they've picked up Kareem Hunt, some guy that they had in the folds a while ago. I can't even remember the guy before Pacheco. It was Williams. He played in that Super Bowl with Mahomes and he scored 2 touchdowns.
I'm trying to remember. I remember Saskandrick Ware. There was who was the other guy? It was Williams, something Williams.
Yeah, he scored two touchdowns in the Super Bowl against the Niners the first time around, I think.
Yeah. What was his number? He was like number 31 or something.
Yeah,
like 30. Yeah.
It's crazy. They just kind of rent these guys for a year or two, and then they move on to the next guy. Hopefully that's not the case for Pacheco. I really like Pacheco, but it's just crazy. I think people look at the Chiefs and the way they handle running backs, and they are starting to replicate that because they think that's how you win.
Yeah, not the case. I think it's just in that system. You can put any back there. I shouldn't say any, but you can put a back there, put him in for a year or two, spit him out, and then they go somewhere else and then forgotten.
It's crazy you think about I was just thinking about this watching the Chiefs on Monday. It's crazy you think about the players they have on that team and like the issues that these players have had. They had Kareem Hunt, who had that domestic violence, kicked a woman. You have the punter, who was involved in like a really bad really bad situation.
Oh, the Ariza.
Yeah, Ariza. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's just crazy the personnel they have, and it's really weird.
Yeah, they're like the glorified version of like the Raiders.
Yeah,
they have
exactly
criminals, but they're like they're Super Bowl winners. You don't bat an eye at that, but then you look at the Raiders, you're like thugs. Like that's kind of what the two polar opposites.
It's definitely the case. I was thinking that watching the Sunday night game, I was like, man, it's crazy. And even like Butker has his weird
issue
going on. So.
I don't know. I feel like the Raiders just get that bad rap, and it's just kind of annoying that you call them like folks will call them thugs because of like Henry Ruggs and some of the other guys that they used to have. Like, but then you look at the Chiefs, and they kind of have some of the same personnel or background issues. Rashee Rice, but you're like, Patrick Mahomes, Super Bowl winners. Yeah, we'll water under the bridge. But
I forgot about Rashee Rice's stuff. He had a summer. He had a really long...
And his mom too.
Oh yeah. His mom stealing the packages or whatever she did.
God.
Crazy story. Anyways, that is the end of our first section of our show, the news. There wasn't really a ton of news that came out today, but you have that Spencer Rattler story, which I think is an interesting one. We will come back in 2 minutes for our fantasy portion of this show. Come on back and join us. Welcome back to the Do Not Disturb Football Podcast. I am your host, Drew Pelter. We are just here with me and Darian today. Make sure you follow us on all of our social media platforms. We are on X, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, D&D Football Pod. We love to have you here. Love to have you subscribe, follow, like, tell your friends about us. Oops. I was trying to refresh these boxes here. Boom. Ski. Let's get into the fantasy football portion of our show. This is why we have this podcast, is to talk about fantasy football. So let's talk about the fantasy MVP this week. Who are we predicting is going to be the top scorer for fantasy? If you have either the guys that we talk about today on your team, you're in good shape, it sounds like. Darian, who do you think is the top scorer this weekend?
Yeah, this guy is due for a big game. He's been kind of mid in his offense and how he's been used lately. But my guy that's going to break out is Bijan Robinson. He's been hovering around. I think we know his floor is about 16.4 points. That's without touchdowns. And he's been on kind of a tear of just like 11, 12, 13 points. I think in the 5-game spread, he's averaging about 13.2 points. Only has 1 touchdown on the season. And as Bijan owners, we know what he can do. We saw it last year where he's putting up 22, 28, 29-point games. That's where he needs to be. So I think against Carolina, who has, I think, bottom 10 run defense this year, I think they're around like 23rd, 24th when it comes to defense against the run. This is the time that Bijan breaks out, and he's going to put up at least 80 yards, 1 touchdown. I could see him around 22, 25-point range.
I really went back and forth on who I think the top scorer is going to be. I will start with saying I think one of the quarterbacks in that Washington-Baltimore game is going to be in the top 5 scorers this week, either Lamar or Jaden Daniels. But my top scorer, which is kind of a weirder one, DeAndre Swift for the Bears against the Jaguars. They are the 29th ranked run defense right now, and they just let Trey Sermon, who hasn't really ever put in a bunch of time in games, they let him put up a good day running the ball. So DeAndre Swift, if you look at his past 2 games, I think in fantasy he's been over 20 points for the past 2 games. He's kind of putting it together. That offense as a whole is really putting it together. They're kind of right now one of those sneaky teams that no one's really talking about. They're actually turning out to have like a pretty good season so far. I think DeAndre is due for a good game here. It seems like they've started to learn in Chicago that they need to start with running the ball using both DeAndre Swift and Roschon Johnson. Roschon kind of comes in the short yardage situations. He got 2 touchdowns last week, so he seems to be the goal line menace for them. But DeAndre Swift has been breaking off some good runs, so I think he's due for a big game. Let's talk about some trade targets. So we did this segment last week. These are buy low candidates that we are advising you should go out and trade for. It is the time to trade right now. This is like the trade season of the fantasy football season. So Darren, I'll start with you. Who are you looking to trade for right now?
Yeah, I have a couple of guys, 1 running back, 1 wide receiver. I'll start with the wideout. Personally, I think all of us on this podcast were pretty low on him at the beginning of the season, especially going into the drafts. That's going to be Stephon Diggs. This is a huge moment to trade for him. I think it would have been a true buy low last week. Given now that we have Nico Collins on IR, he might be a little bit more valuable to those folks that have him, but I still think he's a buy low candidate. I think you can shell out your fringe flex and then a bench guy for Diggs going forward. I mean, you've seen what he can do, especially being the main target in the red zone. I think it was week 1 where he put up 2 touchdowns only on 33 yards. Not sustainable, but now with Nico out, who's the big play wide receiver, he's out for the next 4 weeks, and Tank Dell is coming off an injury and is healthy. I think Diggs is going to be that main target for CJ Stroud. So if I'm in any league that has Diggs, I'm going for him. I'm just going to have him in my flex option going forward until Nico is back. So he'll definitely give you a solid four games. The next guy is running back Josh Jacobs for Green Bay. He's putting up kind of an average year. He's around 11.9 fantasy points. He also only has 1 TD on the year. But the reason why I think he's a buy low, one is just the production being around 12 points per game. Fantasy owners, that's not going to win you games. So they may be sitting at maybe 2-3, 1-4. So you give them a good little package deal, maybe like a 2-for-1, one upside running back and a fringe bench guy for them. I think that's that buy low kind of portion, or even just like a nice 1-for-1. But this guy, he's got the workload that you're looking for. He's averaging about 18 carries per game. He's currently at 90 for the season. So that kind of workload, he's due for some big games coming up, especially with some lower end defenses against the run, especially like Arizona. So definitely is my second guy for buy low.
Yeah, so last week I gave you a player that I think will put you over the top with Sam Laporta at tight end. This week, I think it's a little bit of a different situation. This might be a guy that you'll have to be pretty patient with, but I do think he's worth trading for right now. That is Amari Cooper from the Browns. The reason I say this is because he's been involved in trade talks for a while now. He was involved in a trade talk this past summer. There's been a lot of talks ramping up about who's going to trade for Amari Cooper, and all the options that he has are probably going to be a much better situation from the quarterback perspective. So if he ends up, say, with the Chiefs or the Bills or another really good team, the Cowboys, if he ends up going back to the Cowboys, those are all really good situations with a better quarterback than what he's working with right now. He's a guy that's been healthy for most of his career, hasn't really had a ton of injuries. He's a route runner extraordinaire. He shows up, goes to work every day, doesn't really say a lot. And I think there's a high chance he's going to get traded with the way this Browns season is kind of playing out. And if he ends up on one of those teams, Dallas, Buffalo, Kansas City, his value is going to skyrocket. He's going to be one of those guys that could be a really big late season pusher if he ends up getting traded around the trade deadline here in less than a month on November 5th. So that is my guy, Amari Cooper. I like the Diggs take too. I don't know how likely you are to get Diggs, just because I think their owners are pretty aware of the situation going on right now. But he's probably going to see a lot more targets and put up a lot more points.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I mean, even Tank Dell, he hasn't put up the numbers like he did last year. I think he's been hovering around like 8 points per game, if that. I think he's had one game where it was like 11, 12 points. So the best option is Diggs. So he may be a little bit higher of value, but it's still more of a buy low since he's not that top 10 wide receiver type. But he's definitely going to get you some good points going forward.
So let's do a new topic. This is called Fantasy Outlook. If Nimmer was running the graphics, I think we would have something built for you, but we really don't. This is just, we're going to take two players, well, one player from each. Me and Darian are both going to talk about a player. We're going to talk about their next three matchups and how you should kind of feel about this player at this point in the season. If you should feel good about this player, or if you should be kind of concerned. Darian, I'll start with you. Who is your player, and let's talk about the matchups coming up for that player.
Yeah, my guy, he's on my team. He's been doing great for me. It's Brian Robinson. He's currently running back 9 on the year. So want to definitely look at the next 4 matchups. So uh, obviously we have Baltimore right now this week. They're the 5th ranked run defense in the league currently. They still give up around 50 to 70 yards rushing per game. I don't think they give up a ton of touchdowns, which is Brian Robinson's forte, especially being within the 5 yards in the red zone. He's getting those red zone looks. But after that, this is where he's going to pop off and have 3 games that are healthy for him. He's got Carolina, which my mistake, they're ranked 31st against the run. So second to last. And then they have Chicago, who's 23rd against the run. And then the Giants again. So that's his outlook for the next 3 weeks after Baltimore. Carolina just gave up 80 yards and 2 TDs to Chase Brown. On top of that, 51 to Moss, who also had a receiving touchdown. So they're porous. They're giving up a lot of points to the running back. And then they Chicago, who ranks 23rd, like I mentioned, they gave up 100 yards and a TD to Chuba Hubbard in that same in that matchup last week. And then they're playing the Giants again. We saw how B-Rob played in that first outing. He had 133 yards, didn't reach the end zone. That's the game where we won on all field goals. But even having that upside, if you put a touchdown on top of that, you're looking at a 20-point game out of him. So I think in those 3 weeks alone after Baltimore, we could possibly see 20-point weeks going forward. So he's got a very, very favorable schedule going forward against Carolina, Chicago, and then the Giants.
And I'm going to talk about Bijan Robinson. We kind of already talked about him. He's also on my team, so we both feel good about these players that we're talking about. Bijan is, we talked about playing against Carolina, who's the 31st ranked run defense. Darian's expecting a breakout game from him. I definitely think he's going to perform pretty well. The week after that, they play Seattle. If you think about Seattle's defense, last week, Tracy Jr. from the Giants, a rookie, just rushed for over 100 yards on them. And the week before that, Gibbs and Monty were running all over Seattle's defense. So I think their run defense is a little suspect right now. I think that's a good matchup for him. And then you have Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay could be a stronger defense for Bijan to play against. He just played them last Thursday and only put 10 points up, which is not very good, but it's not, terrible for some running backs. This is your running back 1 most likely, so that's not very good for a running back 1. So that matchup, that last matchup against Tampa, could be a little bit of a struggle. Historically, Tampa's been pretty good against the run. They know the Falcons. They play them twice a year, and they just played them last Thursday, and the Falcons ended up winning. So you would imagine the Bucs are going to really come prepared to play that game and want to limit Bijan as much as they can. So I think if you're an owner of Bijan right now, you're feeling pretty good about his outlook and his performances coming up. That Tampa defense in the 3 weeks from now, you may want to see if you can pick up anybody on waivers just in case you're not feeling too hot about him that week. I'd still start him just because it's Bijan, but that might be a tougher matchup for him. You should be feeling pretty good, though, if you have Bijan on your roster. Let's go through the against the spread segment. So right now, I am in first. Thank you. Nimmer is in second, and Darian is in third. I've got a record of 41 and 37. Nimmer's got a record of 36 and 42, and then Darian's got a record of 33 and 45. So,
Golly, man, I'm bad.
Let's go through these matchups. The first matchup is the Thursday night game. 49ers. Oh, I'm in the wrong one here. Let me see. 49ers at Seattle. The Niners are favored by 3.5 points. Darian, who do you have covering here?
Yeah, looking at the app, it's a even split. It's 50-50 on the voters' choice. But just as you were talking about how the Seattle defense has given up a ton against the run, um, I think this is the good selling point for Jordan Mason. But also, I go to last year's. I think they also played on Thursday night against each other uh, last year or even a couple of years ago. But San Fran came out and dominated them. So in this one, I like San Fran covering.
Yeah, I like San Francisco too. I would think that they're definitely looking to bounce back with
Mhm.
kind of what they've been doing. So I think they could win by more than 3.5 points. I think they could win by at least a touchdown. The next matchup, it is the Jaguars at Chicago Bears. The Bears are favored by 2.5 points right now. Jacksonville just played a pretty decent game against the Colts and ended up winning for their first win of the season last week. So, who do you have covering here, Darian?
Yeah, for me, Jacksonville's pass defense is suspect, and we saw the combination of Caleb and DJ turn up. I think they recreate it in this matchup. Give me the Bears covering here.
Yeah, I'm going with the Bears too. They're 3-2. Like I said, they're kind of putting together a good season, and no one's really taking notice yet. Um, if they win this game, they're 4-2. I think that's when people will start to talk about them.
Mhm.
Um, but I think they're kind of starting to figure it out on offense, and their defense has been good all year. So this is a good team in Chicago, and I think they'll cover this week. Next is the Cardinals at Green Bay. The Packers are favored by 4.5 points. Cardinals just beat the Niners, and the Packers just played the Rams and only won by 6 points, I believe.
Yeah,
So who do you have covering here?
the Cardinals are such a weird team to really pick against because they'll have good games like they did against San Fran, um, but then just completely shit the bed like they did against Washington a couple weeks ago. So my mind is going to the offense that seems to be, I shouldn't say full health. Christian Watson's hurt, but when you have Jaden Reed, Josh Jacobs, and Jordan Love, that's a good recipe. I like them in this one. I think they cover, and I think it'll be by like 6 points again. I think that's kind of being their win margin for sure.
Yeah, I don't even know who to pick for this game.
Mhm.
It's a tough one. I think I'm gonna go Packers. Um, I think it could be a close game, which kind of scares me. Makes me think that the Cardinals might cover. I might
Mhm.
I might change that decision come game day, but
Yeah,
um,
I wouldn't blame you. Like literally, this was the hardest pick for me too.
yeah, it's a tough matchup. Like you said, the Cardinals are kind of unpredictable, and really the Packers didn't impress me at all last week. But I guess I'm just gonna go with the Packers just because I trust in their offense a little more. I trust in their team a little more. In general, I've had two voice cracks this podcast, so I don't know what's going on, but
Nervous.
yeah. Next is the Colts at Tennessee. This is a pick'em game. The Colts are favored by less than a point, half a point. Who do you have covering here?
If AR is not playing, I got Colts all day. Flacco has that offense chirping. I like it. But if he's playing, everyone I'm probably gonna drop downs if AR comes back anytime soon. So um, if Flacco's in, which I think he probably is gonna start, I got the Colts in this one. But this is just an ugly matchup overall.
Yeah, I'm definitely not watching this game. I'm gonna go with the Colts. Texans at Patriots. Texans are favored by just less than a touchdown, 6.5 points. I think we know the answer here, Darian. Who you got?
Yeah, that's an easy one. Yeah, Texans for sure.
I'm going Texans as well. The Bucks against the Saints. This game is in New Orleans. We just told you at the start of the show it's going to be Spencer Rattler starting. The Buccaneers have Baker, who's riding a pretty good hot streak right now. He's one of the top fantasy quarterbacks right now. I think he's number 3. So he's playing really well. Both of these defense are one to think about. This is another tough game, I think, to pick. Darian, who do you got covering?
Yeah, I just with watching the Bucks defense last week, just like how we talked about the Falcons picked them apart. I think they take another week to gather themselves. So this, I have the Saints covering. I think they keep it pretty close.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Bucks just because it's a rookie quarterback. That's a really close line, 2.5 points. So I think this game could be close depending on how Spencer Rattler comes out starting the game. If he comes out and he looks really good, then this game might end up being really close. But I think just because it's a rookie, I'm going to go with Tampa to cover here.
It's fair. That might be my game time decision too. Of like, because I might dip into Tampa Bay right before game time. Who knows?
All prayers go out to Tampa too during this time. The hurricane, I know, just developed into Category 5 this morning, so I know that I think they're practicing in Atlanta or some other offsite place. So just sending thoughts there. Cleveland Browns at Philadelphia. Philadelphia is favored by 8.5 points. That's a lot of points.
Yeah, that is a lot. But I feel like they just do it. They're going to. I mean, the Browns just gave up 30 some odd points to the Commanders and only scored 10. Their offense isn't clicking. I think Philly covers this.
Did you see the fourth down play where Stefanski wanted to go for it and Deshaun just walked off the field?
Yeah, I was like, what the fuck is going on? Even the commentators are like, I don't know what's going on. We got Deshaun Watson walking to the sideline. Stefanski's like looking around. Are they going to waste a timeout? I mean, like they're trying to figure it out. They're like, I guess we'll just do the delay game and save the timeout. And I was like, this is the most joke shit I've ever seen Deshaun do.
This feels like it probably isn't, but it feels like I'm watching one of the historically worst offenses to ever play.
It's bad.
They look terrible. And like they're screwed too because they're paying. I mean, Deshaun took a little bit of a pay cut to come into this season, but he's still making so much money. Next year, I saw that if they were to cut him, I think it's a dead cap hit of $172 million.
Oh my god!
So they can't really do anything. No one's going to trade for Deshaun.
I thought I made dumb financial decisions. That is,
that's crazy. They're so screwed. Like he's the reason that I've thought about the Broncos trade with Russell Wilson, and I'm like, maybe that's the worst trade in history. And then I think about the Deshaun Watson trade, and I'm like, no, that one's way worse.
Mm-hmm. It's so bad. It's just like he is taking such a crazy turn.
Such a skydive of a performance like output from his days in Houston to now with Cleveland.
It's a shame.
They should start Jameis. I mean,
At this point, yeah, you should start Jameis. He can, like, he'll throw 30 picks, but he'll also throw 30 touchdowns. And we've seen it.
I'm surprised that hasn't. Like, I wonder if Stefanski wants to do that, but the owner's like, no. I would think that Stefanski would want to do that because
He should.
there's no saving Deshaun Watson at this point.
Mm-mm. He's too far gone.
It looks so bad. I'm gonna take the Eagles at 8.5 points. Washington at Baltimore. We talked about this game to start the show. The Ravens are favored by 6.5 points. Darian, who do you think covers here?
It pains me to agree that this is a really good line. I think our secondary is going to either get picked apart and just get exposed in this game. This will be the game that we get slapped in the face and then we turn it on the rest of the season. But we need this game right here with a battle of the Beltway. I think the Ravens beat us by like 10, maybe 13.
It's crazy. The majority's on Washington to cover 65%.
Yeah. It's the delusion, the early stages of delusion right there. But the Ravens, their experience, they got Lamar and Henry. I just think it's a little too much for us to handle.
I had Washington. I'm changing it to Baltimore.
They could surprise me. Who knows? But I just think I'm looking at the Ravens and I'm like, all right, they're going to be that team that whomps us real good.
I feel like it's not going to be a blowout. I feel like
No.
it's like a 38-28 kind of game.
I agree. Yeah, I think it'll be kind of like that. Max 13 is how we lose. Max by 13 points.
A lot of points, though, being put up. Good for fantasy owners of both those teams, except for really any tight end from the Ravens right now, because I don't know who you go with.
Kolar.
He's questionable, I think.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's been such a crazy story with the tight ends in Baltimore. Chargers at Broncos. The Chargers are favored by 2.5 points. The majority right now is on the Broncos to cover. Who do you got covering?
I feel like that's wild for them to have the Broncos. Maybe, I mean, the defense is really good. I get it. But I think just the Chargers with how they play, like keep away, essentially, they just milk the clock and just put up points to get their points in and dip and hope their defense does damn well. And I think that's what's going to happen. I think they cover and they probably win by a field goal.
Yeah, I think they're going to win by more than a field goal. I'm going to take the Chargers to win this game. I think there's a chance that they could kind of expose the defense a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the Broncos DBs are good. You got Ku Klux Clamps out there with Riley Moss, and you have Pat Surtain, who's one of those staples in the NFL. I saw that in an Instagram comment, and I thought that was so funny. But
that's hysterical.
Hopefully, we don't get banned from YouTube for that. But I think what people haven't really tried to do, which I think the Chargers will definitely try to do, is run the ball right down the middle against the Broncos. And I think the Broncos are going to struggle with that. And then they'll kind of open things up with the pass. I'm kind of expecting a little breakout game for Ladd here. I think this might be a nice little breakout game for him, but we'll see.
I like that take. I think you put him in your starting lineup too, so
yeah,
cheeky move.
I feel good about him this week. Well, I have Justin Jefferson and Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp's hurt and Justin Jefferson's on the bye, so I'm kind of playing with broken toys at wide receiver right now. But Steelers at Las Vegas. Steelers are favored by 2.5 points. Who you got?
Yeah, Raiders just look bad. That offense looks bad. Give me the Steelers. I like their defense against uh, the Raiders.
Yeah, they're starting Aiden O'Connell now. They just made that announcement today. I just don't really think there's that much of a difference between Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell. Um, so I'm gonna go with the Steelers. I was looking at the line for that. I think the points are like 36.5 points, which is pretty low. I wonder if the under will hit. Anyways,
Yeah, I think the under hits. Be like a 17-10 game.
yeah,
Some
some
terrible.
ugly game, 10
Mhm.
nothing, or 13 nothing. Just straight Boswell kicks like week 1 against Atlanta.
Yep.
Um, Detroit at Dallas. Detroit is favored by 3.5 points here. Who do you have covered?
I think Detroit's going to run all over Dallas, and it's going to get out of hand quick. So I got the Lions covering.
Yeah, the Lions defense hasn't really been that spectacular this year. Um, but I think their offense is one of the best in the league.
Mhm.
And I think they're going to cause a lot of matchup issues for the Cowboys. So I'm going to take the Lions. Falcons at Carolina. Falcons are favored by 6.5 points. 80% of the public is on Atlanta to cover. Who do you
I'm
have?
part of that 80%. Fuck yeah. Give me the Falcons.
Same. Yeah, I don't think the Panthers have a shot here. Bengals at New York. The Bengals are favored by 3.5 points. They've been a really interesting team this year. Who do you have covering here?
Yeah, 70% of people are picking the Bengals in this, and I don't get it. They like we were talking about it yesterday. The Bengals play down to the teams that they're playing or play up to them. And the Giants, they're not that bad. So it could be a good game, but I keep thinking about Daniel Jones and him putting up major yardage with Darius Slayton and Wandell, and then Neighbors is questionable to return. If he comes back, that offense could look pretty scary against the Bengals defense. I have the Giants covering. I think they even win. I think.
Do you think the Giants win?
I think the Giants win.
Woo. Wow, that is interesting. The Bengals just look so bad. There really hasn't, even their game against Carolina, there wasn't really like anything that wowed me at all in that win. Uh, Man, I don't even know. That's a hard one too. I'll go Bengals. I'm not proud of it, but I'll go Bengals.
It's a safe bet.
Yeah. The Monday night game, Buffalo at New York. The Bills are favored by 2.5 points. 77% of the votes are on Buffalo. Who do you have covering here?
Yeah, I got Buffalo in this one. I just think the Jets offense, it's not clicking right now. Brees has been putting up single digit fantasy performances. Garrett Wilson just had his first big game. That's just case in point right there. They're not clicking. So I got the Bills in this one.
Yeah, I think I'm going with the Bills too. I think it's actually probably going to be the most boring game of the week. I think both offenses are going to struggle moving it down the field against each other. So maybe for me here on the East Coast, I'll be going to bed early that night. Let's do locks.
Hey, I mean, I agree with you. I'll be asleep by halftime.
Let's do locks of the weekend. This is normally Nimmer's segment, but since he's not here, I thought Me and Darian would kind of stick our hand into the gambling world. It's still legal to gamble in Texas, where Darian's at. I never really gamble. I used to, started losing too much money, and I haven't really done it since. So, um, let's do our parlays. You have a anytime TD parlay?
Yeah, I got I said, fuck it. I got a 5-legger. Go big, go home. So for me, I got Monty against Dallas. I think that's a given, especially with him. He usually takes the first drive, and they usually score on the first drive. I got him there, anytime touchdown. Followed up by Debo, had a lackluster performance last week. He's due for a good game here. Went against the grain. I like Tolbert scoring a touchdown against Detroit, especially if he's in the slot. I think CD will score too, but I think just for getting higher money, I got Tolbert on there. Brian Thomas Jr. as well. I think he's going to score. It looks like him and Trevor Lawrence are connecting pretty well, and he's just got big playability out of him. So love that. And then I'm going to finish off with Bijan Robinson. Like I mentioned, he's due for a good game against Carolina. All that together, I think you could win like $1 if you place a cent. So I don't know how betting shit works, but whatever the odds are on that, please tag us in a video or on Instagram. I want to see what that payout looks like.
So when Nimmer does this, I also have an anytime touchdown parlay. I really like the Montgomery call, so maybe I would add that to this. But Nimmer usually has like all these really cool stats, like this guy has scored 4 out of the 5 past home games. I don't have any of that for you. I just kind of looked at the names and I was like, I think they'll score. So this is what I put together. I've got a anytime touchdown parlay starting with Derrick Henry against Washington, Terry McLaurin against Baltimore. He's probably the most risky one on this play, I would think. Jaden Reed against Arizona, and then James Conner against Green Bay. And I don't think it would make much of a difference for you. This is a plus 1,016 parlay, so you'll win good money. If you put $10 in, you could win $100. But maybe just add David Montgomery on there. I think that's a guarantee. Maybe if you feel like you want to, like you're safe with a little less money, take McLaurin off there and add Montgomery there instead. That might be the better bet for you. But that is everything from us. This is the Do Not Disturb Football Podcast. It has been just me and Darian this week. It's a fun aspect. I've had fun with just Nimmer, and now I get to do it with just you, and it's been fun doing it that way. Of course, we love having the whole crew together and have us 3 there. He should be back next week, and we should be up and rolling with another week of fantasy football talk and NFL talk. There's going to be a lot of great matchups this week, so you'll have some great reactions coming out of us next week. Is there anything you want to say before we get out of here, Darian?
You gonna go live at all over the weekend?
Yeah, I should. I really should. You want to before Sunday, the Sunday games?
Yeah, I think hitting it right before noon would be fun.
Yeah.
Or the 1:00 games for you, noon for me.
Yeah, so get on at 11 here for me and 12 for you.
10. Right. Oh yeah, 12, 11. Damn, math is crazy. East Coast.
Are we trying to are we trying to get on 1 hour before the game, or?
Yeah, 1 hour before the game.
Okay. Yeah, so we'll do. I'll get on at 11. You'll get on at 10. No.
You get on at 12. I get on at 11.
There we go. I think that's what I had the first time, but I got all confused. Time conversions is like the weirdest math
Yeah,
out there.
it's all fucked up.
I
We
hate
should all just be on a
I hate the time
24
zone
hour.
here.
Yeah, East Coast is fucked up.
It's so stupid. Like the fact that the Steelers had this game and it was slated for whatever it was 8:30 and it got delayed till 9:45.
It's stupid.
What is the
And it
thinking there? Like have
makes
this game 1 hour earlier. I guess it would have gotten delayed mid game, but I just hate
yeah.
it.
I feel like they only do what East Coast teams for Monday night. It feels like
Yeah.
just to appease the West Coast.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I feel like it's always like the Bills, Jets, or which that's the Monday night game coming up.
Yeah,
So, yeah, I've liked Pittsburgh, but man, this time zone difference is. I drink so much more coffee here. I like
Mhm.
it so much more coffee.
Dude, I used to down coffee.
Sometimes it's like an entire pot in the morning just to me.
Your heart is fucked up. It just
Yeah, it's just it's crazy. I feel like everyone's tired here too. Like unless they're not watching football, but everyone watches football here in Pittsburgh. So
yeah. I mean, it's tough work being a dickhead because everyone on the East Coast is an ass. Unless you get into like the southern states, but like Virginia up, everyone's just a dickhead. Like their other full time job is being an asshole.
I mean, I would say everyone here is pretty nice. There's some, you know, the Yinzers, as they say, the people that are native here that have lived here their entire lives. They can be kind of grouchy.
Mhm.
But like I've noticed, if you just speak in like sarcasm the whole time, everyone loves you.
Yeah, I mean that's how you have to speak.
Yeah.
Have you been to Philly yet?
No, I want to. We will make it out to Philly at some point. Um, I got to go there just to have a Philly sandwich and maybe see
I'll tell
some.
you. Be know what the fuck you want to order. I made the mistake in high school. I don't know if I told you the story, but we went up and we were like, "Oh, we going to Pat's, we going to Geno's." Which, like, if you're actually going to go anywhere real, don't go to either. And it's just kind of a tourist trap. But we
That's what
ended
I've
up
heard.
going. Yeah, there's some other ones like I forget what the name is, but there get a roast pork. That one is the way to go over a Philly cheesesteak. But I
Mm.
digress. We went to Pat's and I was like, let me get a cheesesteak. And he was like, all right, whiz or no whiz? And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, brother, you're holding up my fucking line. Whiz or no whiz? Onions, peppers, what you want? And I was like, and I started choking on my words. My
Oh
coach
no.
had to step in. He was like, he wants it all, like, knows the order, sent me through. And he was like, and the guy chirped at him. He was like, don't ever let that motherfucker order my line again. He was like, whoa, I'm 15. Chill out, bro.
Yeah, I didn't know that was the thing until I moved here. There's cheese whiz
Mm-hmm.
on some Philly cheesesteak sandwiches, which to me sounds gross.
It slapped. I'm not gonna lie,
Oh, it's
but
good.
when it's like hot and it melts, it's good. But you see it in the jar and it's just kind of like this pasty cheese. You're kind of off put by it, but when it's like hot from the beef, it's good.
Yeah, I should just go to Philly and try. I want to try one without the cheese whiz and one with the cheese whiz and see which one I like better. There's a place right down the street from my house called Pepe's,
Mm-hmm.
and they are like one of the most famous restaurants here in Pittsburgh. They do Philly cheesesteaks. My God, it's so good.
Mm-hmm.
My God, it's so good. But I'm sure if you tell people in Philly, they're like, "Oh, ours are way better than there." So it's a really cool place. Though, if we ever like, if I were to ever win the fantasy draft again, I think we might come to Pittsburgh. I think that'd be kind of a fun one. Um,
Yeah, I've loved Pittsburgh. I've visited a couple times.
and then we can just go get Pepe's. But I've also thought that's a good question. Where would you pick? Like if you were to win? I mean, you're 1-4, so it's kind of
Yeah, I'm probably not going to be picking. So
get a
uh,
historical run and and win.
the streak, it's coming, boys. I don't know. I feel like, given the temperature, I feel like we need to go to the Ozarks. The Missouri, like
That
River Delta, like area would be sick, and kind of do what we did in Idaho. Have like a waterfront property, have more kayaks, do a boat day if we wanted to, but the Ozarks would be sick.
that was Hook's idea a couple years ago. I know he was talking about the Ozarks.
Yeah, that's what I mean. He sold me on it, so I've been kind of wanting to go.
I think something cooler than Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's awesome, but we kind of want to be out of the city. We don't want to be in the heart of a big city. So maybe like West Virginia, somewhere in West Virginia. It's beautiful out there.
I mean, have you seen Wrong Turn 3? Have you been to like West Virginia?
Yeah, what's
Okay. You had my ass inside a house before sundown. I'll tell you that. There's a couple of states off limits. We're not going to Mississippi. We ain't going to Alabama. West Virginia's up there. I visited a couple times. It's crazy. I went for a college trip. It was Shepherd. It was for a football camp, and me and my buddy Giamfi and Josh Ransom, we went to try out, and we stopped at a McDonald's to use the restroom in town. And I've never seen so many like profanities, vulgar like slurs in the bathrooms just carved into it. And I'm like, I'm looking at the staff. I'm like, this ain't from them. I'm looking at all the patrons and I'm like, golly, I'm in the wrong area. And then the entire football team is minorities, and the people who were marking the bathrooms come and watch them play. And I was like, this is the biggest contradiction. I do not feel safe here. But Shepherd University was pretty dope, though. They had a really nice campus. But yeah, West Virginia's kind of sketch.
Okay, maybe not West Virginia.
If we go like Charleston or
That
some,
place in Idaho was sick, man. That was such a good spot.
no, that was an awesome spot.
That was a hell of a pick by Ricky. I mean, it seemed like a couple people kind of picked it, but
Yeah, still was an awesome trip. I love that spot.
that was a beautiful spot. The weather was just amazing. That's
Mm-hmm.
that's the biggest thing is you got to get to the place that has the right kind of weather, and you probably want to be around water.
Exactly. Just like drink some beers, go to the water, sit by the water, jump in if you want to, and then just chill. Like it was honestly the perfect weekend.
It was a great weekend. But that's enough from us. We'll talk to
Yeah.
Emmer about where he would pick at some point. Um, I wonder if he gets a little jealous that we had that little side conversation there. But
Yeah, he said he watched the podcast this morning, so he's probably gonna watch it again tomorrow or watch this one tomorrow morning and just getting in the feels. He's got FOMO.
no, I'm sure. I'm sure Utah's fun.
Yeah.
You ever been to
Well,
Utah?
when we played BYU,
Oh, okay.
but that's I haven't toured.
Yeah, I just went there a couple years ago. It's interesting. It's a lot like Tucson. That's what it reminds me of. It's like
Yeah, I've been to Moab. I did one of those hikes, but I haven't like visited a city though.
yeah, it's an interesting place. But anyways, that is everything from us. um, Make sure you tune into the football games this week. Follow the advice that we gave you, the waiver wire report that we released on Tuesday. There's probably still some guys out there from that. Make sure you're following the injury report. I'm sure there's some of these guys that are on your team. We've been posting some of the trading talks, who you should be trading for. We'll continue to post that because it is trade season. And that is everything from us. So from another good podcast, a good night to you. We will see you back next week.